Now we have another round of parallel tracks. In track 1, you can view panel discussion on automating the BFSI in the new normal world, moderated by Amol Dete, editor etbfsi.com. In track 2, there's a panel discussion on innovation in a borderless environment, moderated by Syed Mushir Ahmed, founder and MD, FinStep Asia. Over to you, gentlemen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to ETBFSI Summit. My name is Mushir Ahmed. I'm founder and managing director of FinStep Asia, a venture builder based in Hong Kong, working with corporates as well as scale ups on their market expansion and innovation in Asia. Today, we have a very exciting panel of eminent and esteemed panelists. We will be talking about innovation in a borderless environment. With us are Ms. Ratna Prabha Manikavachagam, sorry for the pronunciation, Mr. Ellis Wang, Mr. Ash Malik, Mr. Bharat Raizada. Pleasure to have you all. We have a very extensive experience in global franchisees as well as from east to west, right, all the way till the Mashtrek, as it were. Starting off with, the first question is a lot of you are rather all of you are quite actively involved in looking at international setup for your banks. Can you give us an insight on how your bank is set up for cross-border processes, cross-border interaction? Do you have innovation teams looking into this space? Maybe we can start with Ash and then we can go with others.
DB is a universal bank, which means we have corporate banking, investment banking, private banking, and DWS, which is our asset management arm, all offering global products and services. But as a firm, we believe passionately in what we call globalization. What this means in practice is that we value the diversity of the local culture and having deep expertise of the local market and reg environment on the ground itself. So this means we've got regional SMEs in place for each country and market. They're globally aligned, so we can provide a 24-hour round-the-clock support to our clients. But they are based in every single country. Now, to give you an idea of the benefit of this model, in the first 6 months of 2020, Deutsche Bank transacted a record $15 billion of US dollars of local Asian currency FX, all for clients and all outside the normal Asian market hours. And this kind of intense customer focus led to DB being awarded the Crisis Response of the Year award from Asia Risk in September. We also have what we call country management structures, which work very closely with our desks, but they play a critical role in establishing strong relationships with local regulations and governments. So, for example, late last year, DB became the first European bank to receive approval from Safe Shanghai to join its pilot payment scheme. And that objective is to expand cross-border product and trades and simplify the payment process. So a DB customer now no longer has to perform a long, onerous process and instead can execute an FX payment in seconds. Additionally, with a growing trend of fintech companies expanding their footprint in Asia, we're partnering with fintechs and helping them with their expansion plans, especially overseas. And we're also connecting fintechs across the region. So, for example, in November last year, in collaboration with Invest KL, we hosted a fintech virtual roundtable for Chinese fintech companies who were keen to learn more about Malaysian fintech landscape. So overall, as an umbrella for innovation and working with fintechs, we have a global network of innovation teams with offices in London, New York, Berlin, Palo Alto, and Singapore, actually. And these teams support the four business divisions and infra to help identify, evaluate, and then support the adoption of strategic emerging technologies. And essentially, we do that through three key channels. We have a demand-driven model, where we co-innovate and collaborate with our customers on the ground. And this usually starts with a specific question from a business or infra area. And then our innovation network finds suitable innovative solutions from startups, or sometimes we just decide to invest in internal development. Secondly, we have a scouting team. And this team monitors the key technologies and capabilities which the bank considers to be strategic. So that includes cryptocurrency, enterprise blockchain, which we all know is going to be critical going forwards for cross-border transaction, and other technology like quantum computing and so on. This knowledge is then used by our internal incubation teams, or any other DB team for that matter, for co-innovating and collaborating with customers and partners. And then finally, what we have is what we call internal incubation. And this is a comprehensive entrepreneurship program for all DBs and all employees in DB, which we started about 2 years back. And it's designed to identify the bank's most passionate innovators and give them a platform to engage and to actively drive the agenda forwards. So ideas are proposed, they're pitched to an internal venture board, and then they can be internally incubated and developed. So that gives you an idea of how broadly we work in DB.
Thank you, Ratna. Very much like Ash, SocGen is a European bank with a large presence in Asia and beyond. How have you been looking at cross-border transactions, as well as how's the innovation team set up?
Thank you for the question. I'm able to relate a lot to what Ash just said, considering we're a European bank present across around 60 countries. SocGen also has a major investment banking arm, a retail banking arm within France, as well as the international retail bank that is present across several countries, where we are the leading bank, especially in Czechoslovakia, Russia type of areas. So from a presence of the innovation team, there's a centralized innovation team in Paris, headquartered in Paris. And this particular innovation team looks at mergers, acquisitions, open banking models, a lot of collaboration with the GAFAs, and looking at a variety of ways to do cross-border interactions, and also working with the peer banks. And as they discover models, I'm sure they are working with all the remaining 26 to 27 departments that we have on all these three major arms that I just spoke about: investment banking, retail banking, as well as international banking. And that is how the innovation setup in Paris works. Now, being an outpost in Asia, so myself leading the innovation and digital transformation divisions, we are extremely execution focused, where we directly look at the business use cases from the various businesses and give hands-on solutions, working with fintechs, working with our internal center of excellences, working with the research universities, creation of products, AI, and especially on emerging technologies. And then we also have major work that we deliver on complete fund and value chain transformations and product transformations and delivering key customer experiences. So this is the kind of work we do as an outpost in Asia. And we also interact with the remaining 16 innovation ecosystems that we have set up within SocGen, which is, when I say outpost in Asia, we have smaller outposts even in Singapore and Hong Kong, and we have slightly larger setups of innovation in Americas and other parts of Europe, especially in Romania and Eastern Europe. So the innovation ecosystem is quite interlinked inside SocGen. While we are connected on the strategy of each of the delivering business, which means we have a very good connect with the extended teams of the businesses in Asia, in India, and Romania. And the mandate is that we work with the rest of the group. For example, I can pitch for a RFP in RKB Bank, located in Czechoslovakia. We call it the Komenčany Bank. And I can equally pitch for something in Africa. So for example, we conducted a program for Africa where we identified 8 startups to innovate for our African businesses out of India. So we have that kind of mandate where we are quite interlinked, quite connected strategically, understanding where each of the businesses need help, either to improve the product offerings or to impact the top line or for a customer experience or to completely introduce something new on the digital scale for our businesses. So the setup of innovation is quite central and local, like the way Ash mentioned. The localized setup is quite convenient for the 15,000 people, for example, that are in the offshore and nearshore entities to work with. At the same time, what is really helpful is to be connected to the strategic interests, for example, the payments business, the cross-border payments that you spoke about. If there's a consortium in France that is looking into cross-border payments, we would naturally have a major, for example, we have either a research link or a complete technical provider link with that consortium, kind of a setup where we are working on all these major strategic areas that need innovation. At least I would say we don't work on all of them, but we prioritize 6 to 7 every year where we would like to have a major impact.
Great, thank you so much. Ellis, you are based in the Middle East, and Mashreq Bank has been one of the oldest banks in the region with the international spread as well, more on the private banking, but it's been growing. How do you approach cross-border innovation, and how is your team set up for that?
Since the COVID, so mostly conventional bank actually start to provide a digital service. So that means we move our server application to the cloud, start to provide more the digital channels for our client to use the app, the web to get the same simulate the service. Then we call that is contactless service again. So based on that, actually a lot of new technology have to adapt to the banking system. For example, when we talk about the AI ML, actually we driving not just the increase the internal productivity and efficiency. We also use that to service the customer, because when we have the more idea to know about the customer, then we can provide a customized service for them. They just the more make their life easier, can have a regular financial service, routine, notify them. So after COVID, actually our team, we call the one digital team, actually start to focus on the digital inside and the digital outside. What that means, inside is how you to leverage the AI ML data driven to increase the whole bank operation, reduce the cost. I think that's quite important. Yeah, because the pandemic is not really have the economic growth. So how we to reduce the operation cost? That means we have to use the technology to have the more the high-rate STP end-to-end automation, intelligence to support the whole process. I think that part is quite important, especially for the bank. The second, when we move to the cloud, have the more the digital channel touch point for our client. How you to management? It's the same client, but how they use an app now, but later they use a web portal, then use the ATM, use a different channel. How you to service as one? So that's why we have an innovation team called One Digital. But since the commission bank moved from the legacy system to open banking, so we also got the opportunity to design the digital inside out. What it means is that use the bank the core like a payment to engage with a different market player. Since the pandemic, so e-commerce the business grows up very quick. How you to service the e-commerce client as your partner, engage with your partner to build an ecosystem. So digital inside out actually is how you to leverage your bank the API, can engage with the more and more the service provider. So digital inside is very new topic, very important for the bank. And based on the digital inside out strategy, you can combine the more different services like insurance, wealth management, supply chain, finance service, trading business. Then based on the micro strategy, the open API, then you can engage more and more the partner to service your client by providing end-to-end service. And not just the digital inside out, we also need to think about the digital outside in. What it means? Because as a bank, we have the channel to touch our potential customer. But the social media is so popular. Everybody have a LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. How you to use the external digital channel to targeting your potential customer, even to make a good customer life cycle management. So when we think about the new age coming, because everything talk about the cloud age, so how you to prepare for the hybrid operation, combine your data center and cloud operation at this time, and follow the compliance and make it management of risk. So the one digital team in mature bank is need to think about how to leverage emerging technology to cover digital inside, digital outside, digital inside out, digital outside in as one. Then based on the cloud and one data to build a new service platform to have the mature bank move from convenience bank to the open banking, to the digital banking. So definitely the innovation team is quite important. Is you have to know your customer, also know your new technology, combine it to design the new customer journey to service your corporate customer or consumer customer. So yeah, definitely we have that team.
Inside out and outside in is an important element of engaging on both sides, right? Bharat, you lead teams in two large countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and there must be a lot of interaction that goes on between the two teams quite actively. So I'd love to get your insights in terms of how is the team set up for Wells, and what are the kind of innovation that you've been focusing on from a cross-border perspective?
No, I think, and great question. And I was listening to some of my other colleagues talk about this. So just quickly about Wells Fargo, right? One of the largest bank in the US, 1 in 3 US households is a Wells Fargo customer. So there's a big responsibility we carry. If I look at Wells Fargo, India and Philippines, the way we are set up, I think Wells Fargo has embraced, I would say, cross-border, borderless organization and innovation quite actively. We've been in India and Philippines for more than a decade, and I have experience in prior organizations as well. And when I look at some of the work we've done here at Wells Fargo, I think it's truly entrenched as part of the global organization. You see a lot of front to back teams, conversations around product ownership, as well as innovation being driven out of India and Philippines, which is a really, really good thing. Your question on innovation is spot on. So just going to top of the house, there is an organization called Strategy, Digital Platforms and Innovation, which reports right up to the CEO. That organization is focused on driving innovation across the organization, accelerating the value we provide to our customers. This SDI organization works closely with all lines of businesses within Wells Fargo. The SDI organization has a presence in India, Philippines as well. And we continue to work actively from a technology standpoint. We work very closely with the SDI organization to understand some of the new innovation requirements, short term, as well as longer term that we might want to invest in. Some of the good examples are, for example, from an innovation standpoint, we work with academia very actively. So the MIT, Stanford of the world, as well as we are having conversations for India as well, to look at some of the forward-looking technologies. There's a big play from a compute standpoint, if you think of quantum computing coming in, which has, I think, a bunch of implications, important ones being on how can we rapidly calculate risk on financial transactions, as well as look at how we think of cryptography from that standpoint. There is obviously a big play on the third aspect I would talk about from an innovation standpoint is how do we, the interplay of data. So yes, the problem of big data, but also the big problem of small data, so to say, which means how can we take smaller data sets and use some of that to train as well as sharpen some of the models we have using synthetic data transactions. So a lot of the work that I talk about from an innovation standpoint gets done not just in our global locations, but as well in India and Philippines. So a very integrated organization is how I would put it, where cross-border innovation as well as transactions happen fairly seamlessly.
Thanks, Bharat. That takes me to the next question, where we build on from understanding how your teams are set up to now talking a little bit about digital transformation, right? And how the teams are set up for that internally, because innovation is a very key element. And wanted to ask Alice, Bharat, and Ratna on this is, how are your teams set up? What's the approach? And how big is the role do centers in places like India, etc., play, right? For different banks, it's a different setup. Some have it as their centers of excellence, and some of them have it as their back offices. So we'd love to hear your viewpoints on that. Let's start with Ratna on this.
So digital transformation is definitely a very key part of the strategy since I would say on digital transformation as a bank. So we knew it in 2015, 14, late 14, I guess, that we were slightly late from a beginning standpoint. Nevertheless, I think today where we stand in 2021 is quite impressive from what we have achieved. And the setup itself from the digital transformation is at the department level, typically, because you have digital transformation led by both the business and IT primarily. And I consider that the digital transformation aid that the innovation teams provide is quite significant as an facilitator, accelerator, typically. So from a digital transformation standpoint, the setups that we have is local, for example, in India and Romania, for which I'm responsible for. There are local teams of data scientists, of process transformation, DTOs, cybersec teams, etc., located within the divisions. Now, the way we interact with those divisions is that I also have a central team of over 100 people. Now, how we perform is, we are grouped as departments within innovation. For example, I have an open innovation department. I have a digital transformation department. I have AI and emerging tech products department. And then we also have a business consulting department. So the consulting department quite leads the way in terms of doing large studies, and identifying the opportunities, both the market opportunities outside for some of the areas where we have innovated, as well as internal opportunities for which we could, scale up the solutions that we have created. So the consulting leads the studies, consulting leads the marketing and business development effort. For example, I'm a P&L division where typically we do not ask SocGen to invest in our innovation division. So the P&L that we have at the end of the year is quite sufficient to manage the cost of the department, as well as to invest in various programs and technologies and other investments that we need to make. So the model itself has evolved in the last, we are in the 6th year of running right now. So digital transformation opportunities that we gather starts with study, assessing the market opportunity, providing a POC, and then MVP, and then working at that point of time. Collaboration and co-creation along with the IT departments becomes the key in the transformation aspect, and working with the respective transformation departments becomes the key. Collaboration, co-creation at this level is also extended to the customer experience. We have the design department stepping in at that point of time, and to understand how the customer impact will be felt with each of these transformations is a very key input, at least 3 or 4 points in the whole life cycle of the transformation. And of course, now we also follow a new operating model where at the MVP stage, we involve the users, if not customers, the users of the transformed product or a transformed platform, in terms of rating the experience, rating the transformation, reimagination of the complete new creation, and taking that as a real input in terms of going ahead with the integration of these efforts into the target platform that the strategy, the IT strategy involves. Now, the digital transformation again is a very, very huge topic. Mostly in the beginning of every year, led by the business. This year, for example, late 2020, the retail department, we have a group of subsidiaries which we call as Credit du Nord in France, over 30 subsidiaries integrating with our French retail bank, and that's a huge merger of sorts which we have not done in the last 15 years. So integrating all the IT platforms, IT systems, applications, bringing the customers of the two entities onto a common platform is now planned for a duration of around 3 years. So we call this program Yoga, and the entire bank comes together to pitch in and make this program a huge success, so that we can realize the savings of the efficiency of doing such a major merger within successful. Similarly, the investment banking division launches a lot of digital transformation programs, to which the whole IT, what we call as IT filiere, is a group of IT divisions that come together to see how we reuse various applications, how we reuse foundations, how we reuse infrastructure, especially in going to hybrid cloud. How do we do the various migrations and launch programs for low code, no code together, or the cloud migrations together. So all of these efforts on the digital transformation is also key to achieving the transformation successfully. I think as a bank, we have learned now how to launch it in one area and then quickly be able to scale it up in other areas and benefit from that. And we do have a structure which is transversal to see to monitor, I would say, the various transformations happening in various businesses. While they are monitored at the business level, To achieve it at the IT scale, I think we have quite a few organization structure that have changed in the last 2 years to achieve these measures. Happy the way that digital transformation is carrying forward. And then just to add lastly is, on the open banking areas where we are digitally transforming and the mobile space, etc. The involvement of the external ecosystem is a key factor, especially fintechs. So we do have local programs, especially in India and Romania, where we introduce the Asian strength back to the French ecosystem and the reverse also. And now we have also the big companies across the world in US as well as Europe pitching in and helping us with our transformation to speed it up. So all in all, I think it's going pretty well.
Thank you. Bharat, how are you approaching this from a Wells Fargo perspective and your own personal leadership?
So from a digital standpoint, the way I would look at it is all aspects of business are focusing on digital, be it digital account opening, be it online loan approvals, or be it a wire transfer. The world is really moving towards digital. And I think over the last year, this thing has only accelerated. The digital focus, I think, comes across all those realms. And if I go back to the previous answer I gave, which is around the strategy, digital platforms, organization reporting right up to the CEO, that reflects some of the focus we have as an organization. The way we are working through some of that is, and I'm giving a view from India, Philippines standpoint, is we are looking at teams where we have digital teams that face off to the business, as well as the technology teams come together in an agile construct. So we are able to rapidly turn around capabilities for our customers. I think this is something that is going to happen across each of the lines of businesses as we accelerate on the digital journey. From an India standpoint, I think where we are is we already have this established, and I think this is only going to accelerate over the coming years. Where each company is on this journey from an India perspective could differ based on the maturity of the organization. So where I see Wells Fargo, we're already quite mature, we have the capability, the skill set, and therefore we are rapidly moving through it. But I think this trend of India is just a systemic trend which will just increase. And I think a few things play into it. One, if you look at the India ecosystem, there is a huge talent in the fintechs, in the digital space. That's because we have capabilities in companies such as Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, and a bunch of other firms where you have people who have this experience of doing this at hyperscale. Second, I think India also has a very bustling and continuously innovating fintech setup. If you look at the Paytms of the world, the Ola Moneys of the world, the Amazon Pays of the world. So you have that capability in terms of skill, even in the local India market. So if I bring the two of them together, I think digital is one of those spaces where India is poised to kind of do more and more in all the organizations. I think the other thing that will play into acceleration of what happens in digital and organizations more from India is some of the impact that has come in through COVID. Organizations have become more and more comfortable with going virtual. And I think that will play in a lot more things happening from an India standpoint. And I think the last thing that will really drive some of the capability build out in India across organizations is the maturity we are seeing from a telecom standpoint, right? There's 4G, 5G is around the corner. There are fantastic collaboration tools now available. And really, all of us have gone really comfortable working virtual. This call is an example. Zoom calls where in your personal life you attend birthdays, weddings, and such. So people have become just very, very comfortable working virtually. So this triple merger, if I may say, of capability, of technology enabling it, as well as the most critical human factor of it being able to work together, is just going to accelerate what we do from an India perspective. So that's my sense of things. So back to you, Mushir.
Alice, how are you seeing it in the Middle East? You spoke about the different ways the bank is looking both from an internal and external perspective. But when it comes to digital transformation, how are you approaching it? And do you look at centers like in places like India or in other emerging markets for your technology needs?
Yeah, I think the good interesting things happened before COVID and after COVID. Before COVID, when we talk about digital transformation, it's more focused on the digital insight, like provide intelligent automation, increase the STP process rate. And for digital outside, it's more like provide the app, have the digital online banking portal, something like that. But after COVID, for the digital inside, actually, we need to think about a new topic is how to make your work from anywhere, right? So you see in India case, even in the Middle East, we have the almost 9 months in last year, everybody work from home. But this year, how we to leverage this by have the more the operation running from anywhere. So it's the new topic for us. Based on the new challenge, the banking system have to be changed also. Before COVID, we actually built our data center. So we follow our GRC framework to management the risk and follow the compliance. Everything is put on the one place. But after COVID, it go to the cloud. So we must follow the new compliance, new regulation, how we to management the data in the cloud, even in different place. So after COVID, when we talk about digital transformation, it's more like how you to adapt your operation environment to the new challenge, like work from anywhere, and more the integration you have to do. So for example, after COVID, when we provide the app to service our customer, it's not just the one ask you to provide the regular service like a loan service, like payment service. They ask you is how can I get a quick loan immediately because the pandemic. Before the bank maybe take the 3 days to run the process, but now they ask you to give that loan 3 seconds. So how you to redesign the process based on the digital credit, and even some people, your client ask for the more service like healthy care, because the pandemic is not just the get the money business or service from you, they asking more because that is new demand from our client. Even like a digital inside out, we need to think about a supply chain, global supply chain financial service. So you not just service the one place, one customer. You have to think how you to service build a network service the different customer in different place. And your colleagues work from anywhere. So it's a quite challenging how we to build a digital GRC framework to reduce the risk, if still follow the compliance from different central bank, and still you can make your bank system run from the central management to decentral management. It's quite challenging. So that's when we talk about digital transformation before COVID and after COVID, it's a totally different. It is you need to leverage the technology to adapt to the new environment. And of course, so for that change, not just technology need to adapt to your daily operation, you also need to change the DNA in your team, because that is you have to run your bank like a fintech. Because when we talk about the data, talk about cloud, talk about AI, talk about the marketplace ecosystem, it's more like a bank do the fintech things. So you have to change your team to have a new mindset, and then they can do a good job based on that. So that's a quite interesting observation before COVID and after COVID when we talk about digital transformation.
Thank you. And it's a very, very interesting point, right? COVID-19 has accelerated a lot of the digital transformation, digital pickup, as well as I feel it's also accelerated decision making from top down. Everybody now sees the impact and what works or doesn't work. Ash, I'm going to bring you in here and just continuing the conversation here is how has COVID-19 changed your bank strategy? How's Deutsche dealing with this in context of borderless and cross-border innovation, right? Especially in a South Asia context.
I think my answer might be quite interesting because it may not resonate with some people around the room. So if I look at COVID-19, it presented organizations across the world with a scenario that far exceeded even their most aggressive BCM plans, right? So not expected at all. And then as Deutsche Bank, we witnessed some of the sharpest moves in financial markets. So our Autobahn product, which is used by corporate banking clients, saw a 300% increase in client demand for electronic execution. We saw the material pickup in payments across Asia, which I mentioned earlier. And we saw a significant fall in the level of liquidity, which we had to help our clients with, especially in US dollars. But the key thing for Deutsche Bank is that COVID-19 may not have changed what we do strategically, but it did broaden the relationships tremendously. And it has changed how we provide our expertise to our clients. And also the level of interaction, and I think Alice was saying the same thing, the level of interaction with our clients has just gone into complete overdrive. Now, what I mean by that is that COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our role as a cross-border service provider has become even more important. And our customers are valuing flexibility, and they're actually looking for opportunities to interact with us way more than they've done in the past. And I guess in many ways that shouldn't be surprising because customers have had their business models impacted significantly, and in some cases completely disrupted so much that they've had to reinvent themselves. So for us, simply being there for our clients at a time and place that they wanted was critical. So I'll give an example. Last year, DB Asia, in partnership with a company called Symphony, we delivered the first social messaging platform dedicated for financial professionals. So it allows bankers, say, right, to communicate seamlessly, real time with clients. Clients can then choose their own preferred social media experience, for example, WeChat or WhatsApp, while still meeting the very stringent compliance and regulatory requirements that banks have in place. In parallel, what we have seen due to the impact of COVID-19 is a surge in requests from our customers, fintechs, and actually regulators too, to explore the use of digital assets and currencies. Now, we're already involved in the last 6 months. We've got involved in an increasing number of proof of concepts, exploring digital asset interoperability, liquidity, cross-border connectivity, and we've even seen the feasibility of sustainability-themed digital bonds. So all of this has accelerated in the last few months. I've seen some subtle changes in DB too. Now, DB's always had a customer focus, and I touched on that at the beginning. We often talk about providing our customers with the full suite of services. But one of the impacts of COVID is that it's really united our people in the organization and created a very strong sense of purpose. Now, a customer is seen as a customer of Deutsche Bank, and it doesn't belong to one business or another. So now we talk a lot more about holistic services, holistic experiences. And from the customer's perspective, they see far more coordinated coverage across their private, corporate, and financing needs. So in reality, for us to summarize, the pandemic, what it's really done is reassure us that we launched the right strategy in 2018 and that we're implementing it successfully, especially in Asia, which, by the way, contributes the most to Deutsche Bank's bottom line. And also, there's been some clear enablers that have been reinforced that we'd already set out in our strategy. And I want to highlight just two, because the team here has already mentioned them. The first one is the importance of our delivery hubs and tech centers, such as India. Now, Deutsche Bank's tech center here in India is its largest tech center. So employing outstanding techies, helping them improve their functional expertise, which is going to be key, encourage them to collaborate and share with each other, and empowering them to innovate is a strategic priority for us, just like Wells Fargo and the other guys too. Now, I've also mentioned innovation and fintech a few times, and so has everybody else on the panel. And I just want to highlight that the importance of India, which continues to be the third largest tech startup ecosystem in the world. It's also home to the second largest fintech startup base for digital lending, digital payments, and wealth management. So it's crucial. So nurturing and collaborating with them and with the whole of the India fintech ecosystem, as Bharat mentioned, is critical for us too. And a small example of that is how we were the title sponsors for Eureka 2020, which is the largest business model competition in Asia. So we're going to see a lot more interaction with that fintech ecosystem, just like Wells and the other guys too.
Ratna, how have you been looking at this, and especially from a Europe context to the India context? How have you looked at the impact of COVID in your bank's strategy?
I'll add to what I agree to what Ash just mentioned. A lot of it is quite applicable to how we perceive the post-impact of COVID. Additionally, I would like to say that some of the learnings is key for us, where we realize the the need for the contactless way of doing things, right? Starting with recruiting our staff where we had to do onboarding. Similarly, we had to do, a lot of KYC for new customers that we acquired for whom we had to do completely deliver contactless onboarding. So we recognize a lot of services where these type of contactless, I would say, technology needed to be developed very quickly where it was already not there. And then we looked at where are the grounds where these type of technologies are most applicable, of course, in France and Africa and other areas. But I think the maximum requirements were in the areas where we were onboarding a lot of new customers. So the experience, the modernizing our applications to suit this type of integration of external platforms was crucial and key, and we had to deliver it at speed. And that is something that we did quite fast. And then we also realized that when you have a lot of staff not available in office where they used to work with a lot of physical documents, the doc checking, the whole checks that we used to perform on the operations side, especially in the fraudulent check areas, the AML areas and other crucial areas, even in the KYC business, is where we realized that we needed to implement hyper-automation and use a lot of AI in these type of areas where the doc checking completely is now implement. I think these are the good effects of COVID, where now certain areas are completely automated, which I think would have normally not been prioritized in normal times. And the realization that we have is by prioritizing these areas, I think we have secured a lot of space in terms of fraud, and we have achieved a lot of efficiency internally by being able to automate end-to-end on document checks and fraud. I would also extend learning also to recognize the spaces where we have very large banking processes, right? Legacy processes, which of course are going through small transformations, which had not undergone complete reimagination. So when these processes encountered, during the pandemic times, is when we realized part of the processes needed to be put in specific geographies and not spread across geographies, where the handover elements in COVID affected areas was really painful. And these are the areas where we realized that we intelligently now have placed the processes where they belong. And also the process automation with using AI has been prioritized. Of course, it takes a long time. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we should be able to achieve 80% of this automation. But today, I think we stand at around 30 to 35%, which is not bad. But achieving this 30 to 35% to moving to 80% is a very significant target that we have set ourselves during the pandemic times. And we have now rolled up our sleeves to execute the strategy. And we have very clear mandate, investment, organization, and collaboration around this type of achieving this type of large-scale automation, of course, using technology. And technology itself is now being ingrained for P&L certification for all the areas where we thought, there's a common thing in the bank. These are complex areas, and this is where you really need to come last in terms of automation. And those are the areas which now comes first post-COVID. And that's a very bright future that we see in terms of innovation and digital transformation during COVID. Of course, I also agree to all the things Ash said in terms of how we have been affected during the pandemic from using the remote logins, etc. And I think that is something that all of us have faced together, and we've successfully come out of it, renouncing a lot of things that we normally traditionally did, and now adopting to new ways of, and every process, every outlook is now digital, as Bharat mentioned as well. And it is important for us to now see from our customers' point of view, how they see banking, how they look at experiences, how they would like to integrate all services into one platform. And we are also looking at integration and holistic services, as someone mentioned.
Thank you, Ratna. Bharat, moving to you, how have you looked at it? And there's a be good to get a comparison sense of wealth from a India versus Philippines perspective, as well as in the States. How have you seen that response to COVID, and how that impacted the strategy?
We were always on that journey to move to a digital standpoint, right? I think what COVID-19's really done is really accelerate, and the kind of customer adoption we have seen on our digital channels is just spiked. So I would say from a digital standpoint, two aspects to look at. There is, yes, the additional feature set that's needed, which is give customers more ability to do things through our online mobile app, have omni-channel experience where customers, irrespective of channel, get the same digital experience. So more feature set built out. But the other thing that we have been actively working through over the last year is when you see these multiple X load and focus coming to digital channels, you have to ensure that the digital platforms themselves are scalable as well as stable. So that's another piece that we have worked on very actively. As we see those increasing volume coming in, we need to make sure that customer experience from a channel perspective continues to be seamless. We have to be very cognizant of the fact that for our customers, our communities, small business, last year and this year has been a really challenging year. And we need to do everything to make sure their experience is seamless. A great example is the Payment Protection Program, the PPP program that got launched in the US last year for small businesses, right? There was a huge focus to disperse some of those funds to the right businesses that required it. We actively put together an end-to-end intelligent automation, and through 2020, we dispersed close to 194,000 loans worth more than $10 billion for our small businesses. Each of these pieces makes a real difference to our customers, and bringing in the right mix of automation, intelligent automation, bots and such really helped move the needle forward. There were some really gratifying, heartwarming stories that we heard. We heard about a restaurant owner, right, getting an online loan approval, or opening a digital banking account to meet their business needs, or being able to do online wire transfers for COVID kids. All of this was digital, and what makes me really happy is a lot of the work for this was done through our India Philippines office. I think this will only continue to accelerate, and Ash has alluded to some of the reasons that will help drive it. But I think from a COVID standpoint, what we are seeing is an acceleration on a journey that already was there. And I think this again will become one of those systemic trends that will continue even when we go back to the niche, to the cliched new normal, as they say, right? I think this is one of those systemic trends that is here to stay. Back to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna segue, Ash, and we're coming towards the end of the panel. We have about 5 minutes or so left, so would appreciate shorter answers. But Ash, building on from there, right? How is the response now to remote working? In financial services, there's always been the issues with compliance. BCP was good for a couple of days, but when you talk about months and now a couple of years, that kind of changes how you interact, right, and how you look at it. Trading could not have been done previously outside of that trading room. You couldn't step out without a card, but now people are sitting in their homes and doing the same. So can we see remote working becoming a trend? I see a lot of banks here in Hong Kong locally making that as an option, and I think that's going to be a longer term trend. How are you seeing it from Deutsche? Are you expecting this to be more a longer term trend where remote working will become normal, or the new normal, as Bharat was mentioning?
So Moshe, I think the answer to that one is quite straightforward. When you've seen 1.7 trillion euros of capital raised in the debt market, which is an all-time high for Deutsche Bank, never mind the pandemic. When you've mentioned, when you've got traders remote working around the world, which was unimaginable before, I think we know where we're heading. And I think here there's a lot of things that we've learned, right? And what Deutsche Bank is officially doing is taking stock of experience during the pandemic. But there's one thing for sure, that we've learned a lot, and all these factors need to be considered and taken into account before we decide exactly what we do. Now, I just want to mention a few things that I think we've all learned. Freedom of choice and movement is a key part of any human being's mental health, well-being. We've learned some roles can easily be performed at home. Traders can trade just as well, if not better, than in the office. People step up when they're given clear goals and outcomes, and they don't want to let the company down, even if they are working from home. And there's potentially an untapped market of talent in smaller cities, especially women who might find it difficult to migrate or shift bases. But at the same time, there is a need to be in the office. There may be some roles that are highly regulated. There may be some roles that require secured access to technology. And there are some people who don't find their home environment at all conducive for work and prefer the facilities of the office. And of course, there's some activities such as brainstorming, planning, face-to-face training, or simply team and culture building that are best done in the office. So to cut a long story short, DB will almost certainly operate in a hybrid model where a significant percentage X, and I can't disclose that today because I don't know it, but it'll be a high number, will almost definitely work remotely, subject to all of the regulatory approvals.
Tell us what's been for you, how have you seen it? Dubai was one of the few locations that kind of try to keep things going and business open for quite some time, and they still do have that almost open door policy. How has that impacted business on the ground from a remote working perspective? Or are more people comfortable coming to office?
Yeah, Japan is based in UAE, but actually we have a global branch in 9 countries. So from this year, we try to build a new working model. So we set up the COE, Center of Excellence from the Bangla first. So we try to leverage the local talent, local fintech, to that our staff can work from anywhere. Also support the local business. So we are trying to build the business network from this year. So more and more COE will to be built in this year and support a different market like Egypt, India, and Hong Kong, even the US. So that is the new operation model as the bank before we more focus on the central management. But from this year, we are more focused on the decentralized management, no matter is the staff management or technology management or the business management, because it's the decentralized, it's moved to the cloud. You can do anything from anywhere. So that is the very interesting thing, especially when we talk about digital transformation. It's a new challenge, but a lot of opportunity.
That was sharp and quick. We've coming to the end of the panel. What I will do is give each of you 30 seconds, very tight, but if you had to talk about a systematic trend for cross-border environment, what would be one critical element that you think is essential for banks to innovate in a cross-border environment? 30 seconds, if you could quickly do that. Let's start with Ratna.
Extending a lot of communication and real-time activity with the customers, I think, is the key for innovating for the customers and taking in feedback and being able to analyze the data and performing actions. So to me, data and communication is the key.
Thank you very much. Ash?
Just very quickly, I think the trend towards national interest and the protection of supply chains, call it techno-nationalism, definitely worries me a lot. And we've got to make sure that it doesn't become a serious inhibitor to cross-border transactions, because it will prevent a cohesive emergence of cryptocurrencies, for example. A big topic, and probably a discussion for another day, Mushir.
Right. It could be a discussion for days as well, considering what's happening in this space. Right? Bharat?
An ability to collaborate and leverage some of our virtual collaboration platforms effectively, along with having the right sponsorship, I would say, top of the house, as well as skills on the ground, I think would be the top drivers to help to take this forward.
Yeah, for the Marshall Band, the only things we want to focus is the customer centric. That is quite important. Based on that goal, we can leverage different technology, different operation model, but customer centric is our focus.
In addition to what you all have said, I think culture is going to play a very big role, and 2020 has been that landmark year where culture has had a push and everybody is accepting things. Thank you. It's been one of I've moderated dozens of sessions, but this has been one of the most informative sessions I've sat in to listen to. So thank you all for such deep and wonderful insights. I think our audience is privileged to listen to the collective leadership that's there on this panel. I look forward to staying in touch with all of you, and for the audience, feel free to get in touch with the speakers via LinkedIn. You have their names and profiles. And thank you to ETBFSI for having us today on this panel. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, panelists, for deep discussion. We'll take a short networking break. You can proceed to the exhibit hall and enjoy useful information shared at the partner booths. Stay tuned.